Good morning, everybody. Today we're talking with Anna Hinder, a former HR director of a large professional services firm and now a consultant to many types of law firm and law departments. Anna is a people specialist, and she's our first teaching fellow in the people arena for the College of Law's Master of Legal Business program. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning, George.
Oh, Anna, it's really good to be chatting today. The subject is people in legal services organisations, law firms and law departments. You wrote something on LinkedIn the other day, which is an oldie but a goodie in my view. The practice and business of law is first and foremost a people business. What's your take on how well these organisations are doing in the people department?
I think there's been a huge improvement over the last 20 years, but I think now there's a realisation that people are important to the business, that they do actually need some attention and leaders do need to give this some time. That certainly wasn't the case 15 or 20 years ago, which was the background to my comment about being an oldie but a goodie. We've known this for a long time, but the execution of it in law firms has been something that originally leaders tried to ignore, and now I think they're slowly coming to the realisation that this area is important.
If we approach this from the as is, as you observe it today,
Yep.
and the could be, should be, what's the gap, and what are the sorts of things law firms are trying or should be trying to bridge that gap?
So I think what's being done really well at the moment is the senior associate and early partner leadership. So people have been promoted into those roles over the last couple of years. Firms are giving those individuals a lot of support, a lot of care, a lot of focus in terms of transitioning into their roles and understanding what it means to be a leader in those roles. The perpetual challenge has been the behaviours of the old-time partners. So partners who've been there for 10 or 15 years, it's very hard to get the attention of those individuals and get them to realise that they could do potentially different things to get different results. And it's always tricky to motivate people who have been in a role for a number of years and they've been very successful in other parts of their career to now pay attention to this area that most of them don't like doing.
And there's a new dynamic, the multi-generational workforce.
Absolutely.
And a whole bunch of younger people who actually don't want to be in law firms but think, having done law school, they better be, and are thinking what's beyond the firm, and am I here for a year or two, and firms are putting all this into training and developing them, and then woof, they're gone.
Yeah.
So, what's your take on how firms could do better in that area?
Well, this is a really interesting one because we've got three generations in the workforce at the moment. So we've got the baby boomers that make up most of the partners. We've got Generation X that make up the early stage partners and some senior associates. And then we've got the millennials, which make up sort of PQE 0 to about 10. And so getting those three groups to work together has always been known to be a challenge, but we are facing down that challenge now. The key thing that comes together is attitudes to work. So Generation X say, just turn up, do the work well and get on with it. And the millennials are saying, no, I need more structure. I need more goals and objectives. I want to know what success looks like, and I will work very hard if you outline that for me. The challenge we've got is the Gen X managers will say, why should I have to spell this out for you? No one's spelled it out for me. So we've got these real differences in attitude, and then I think that changes the motivation of the young lawyers coming through to say, well, if you're not going to give me interesting work, if you're not going to give me a well-structured career and make it interesting, then I'm not going to hang around. I'm going to go off and do something else. So many firms are struggling with that challenge of retaining people with about 3 or 4 years experience. When they get really productive, they can really make a contribution to the team. Firms have invested a lot in them already, as you say, and then they're looking to sort of recoup that investment over that next 2 or 3 years of performance, and they can't retain them. So lots of firms are struggling.
So
with
everybody, in a sense, is a leader and can be a leader. You don't have to be the managing partner or the practice group head to be a leader. You know, a second-year lawyer can be a leader. What role is leadership playing from whatever level in the firm in addressing this opportunity?
Well, I think you've got different attitudes to it. So the partners will say, I'm leading a practice group, I'm leading a set of clients, I'm leading the firm. And then you've got the early stage career professionals, people you mentioned with 2 or 3 years experience. They have to lead themselves. They have to lead the way they contribute to the firm, the culture of the firm and what that actually looks like. It's when that comes into conflict that we get ourselves in an interesting territory. So everyone is a leader, but everyone needs to know where the boundaries of their leadership stop. What's the part where I can really make a contribution, where I can really be proactive, and what's the point where I need to collaborate or work with someone else who's going to take it forward next?
So that's a really great great tip in a sense that you're making here, that define the boundaries of what you can influence.
Yes.
And then what do you do to make that influence real and effective and rewarding for yourself?
Yeah, well, the people who do that best combine what the organisation wants with what they are passionate and interested in. So if you have an interest in a particular area or you care about a particular thing, if you can find a project or a matter or a client opportunity where you can actually combine those two, then you'll enjoy leading and it won't feel like hard work. If you're being asked to do something that you don't like, if you're being asked to do something you don't believe in, then it's going to be a struggle. It's going to feel like heavy lifting or it's going to feel like hard work. So the people that get that combination best know where their strengths are, they know the work that they're going to enjoy most, and they look for opportunities to do it really proactively.
Now, in a sense, if everybody ran free and did their thing in this passionate way, you'd have some degree of chaos. How does a firm harness people without inhibiting them?
Well, and this is the undeclared sport of professional services, right? You have to give enough structure so that everyone knows the direction that they're meant to go without creating anarchy where everyone just goes their own way. So think of that sort of firm strategy or firm vision or firm values as sort of a compass setting. I used to do a lot of hiking in a previous life. That's where we're going. That's the hill that we're going to conquer. And then everyone get there in your particular way, in the particular way that you want to contribute with the skills and behaviours that you've got. But don't do it the other way without telling anyone. So there's this sense of, I think we should do something differently or I want to approach it in a different way. You have to communicate that to the person who's leading this situation.
He's not so much in vogue anymore, but the great David Meister.
Yes.
He coined many phrases, one of which was supportive intolerance.
Correct.
Which is striking that balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, from your perspective, how well are firms doing in being supportively intolerant?
Well, the great thing is Laura Empson's book has sort of captured this really nicely, where she says everyone wants to be a leader, but no one wants to be led. And I think that is the challenge. So you need to have enough autonomy and you need to give professionals particularly enough respect to use their whole brain and solve the problem. So I think it's about being clear about what the problem is or what the challenge is or what the outcome is, and then giving people some freedom, but still having enough sort of control over this system so it doesn't become chaotic. And Meister was really the first to sort of try and describe that challenge in the way that resonated with many professional services leaders. Everyone read that book and went, okay, that is the world that I work in. And what we've continued to do over the last sort of 20 years is find different ways for different leaders to sort of corral the chaos.
If we just touch on partners for a moment, those partners whose remuneration is linked to their equity share as opposed to salaried partners.
Yeah.
And how the remuneration systems and signals influence their collaboration, their people management, their roles beyond billing clients.
Yeah.
Say a few words about that.
Well, I think this is an interesting one. I think the partnerships that I've worked closely with over the years, the real control actually comes from the managing partner and the conversations they have with those equity partners about what's appropriate, what's expected, what's not, where they need to slightly change direction. By the time you try and control those behaviours with partner points, it's already gone. So it's too late by that point, and it feels a bit like running a kindergarten. You know, they don't like being controlled that way. The managing partners don't like doing it either. So if you're trying to get those behaviours right with REM, I think it's too late. And the really great managing partners do that very subtly and very powerfully behind the scenes. They're onto those behaviours early. They're very good at inducting new equity partners, saying this is the deal, this is how it works, this is what we expect. And it's actually the power of the group that gets those behaviours working really nicely. You know, everyone says I serve at the behest of my fellow partners, and you have to understand what that contribution is and what's expected and what's not. REM's only a small part of it. I think it's pretty, as a HR director of a partnership, it's pretty late in the process to be able to sort of rewarding points or taking points off a partner for something that they've done 6-12 months ago.
But just thinking about the change management here, the influence of REM and the entrenchment of it, particularly performance-based REM as opposed to lockstep type REM, is so pervasive and so strong. Come a new managing partner into the role who wants to change this. What are your views on how they do that?
I think that the longer game, the one that's going to be more sustainable, is to talk about the benefits of the firm of those new behaviours that they want to see, and how the older ones are either out of date or out of alignment. And I think you have to convince partners in a very sophisticated way about the benefits of the behaviour that you want to see over and above the REM. Any sense that they're going to be punished or rewarded in a very straightforward way, I think it makes them feel disempowered.
There are no blunt instruments that don't work.
Yeah. But if you can get if you can fire their imagination, if you can fire their potential, the contribution they want to make to the partnership, sometimes the legacy that they want to leave, their sense of stewardship of a firm that they've attached their identity to, all of those things are really powerful motivators for partners. And people will change their ways because of their reputation in the market. They will change their ways for the legacy that they want to leave, or the contribution that they want to make to the firm over and above the financials. And there's great pride in that for professionals. You know, I've contributed to this firm, I do this amazing work with clients. There's a real sort of pride in their technical skills being applied well. I think we sometimes underplay that because it takes more thinking. You know, it takes a very individual, sophisticated business case really that you're putting together for these smart, bright people that you want to convince them of doing something different.
So a key issue is how a manager understands the expectations of those she or he supervises.
So one of the things that's really interesting is that over the last 5 or 6 years, the way that we teach subjects at law school has changed. So we now have marking rubrics, we have very detailed subject guides, and we've done all of that to give the students really clear guidance about what we're expecting and what they need to learn. The transition from that very structured learning environment into the working environment is a really hard one for them. So they go from having great structure and great detail to having work it out as you go, give this draft a go, have a try at it, come back to me and ask questions. So they go from very high structure to very low structure. And I think one of the challenges with that is that the supervisors inside the law firms never had that level of guidance when they were at law school. They never had that level of guidance at school, so they're not used to giving it. And so you see a lot of conflict between managers who are saying, just get on with it, give it a go and get it done, and junior lawyers who are saying, come on, could you give me a working hint about what I'm meant to be doing, and then I will work very hard to get it done. So the key to that is what we call high accountability management, making a really clear connection between the standard that you want and the rewards and the outcomes that will come from it. And if both groups did that a little bit more, I think we'd have an easier time of it.
And that's a learning curve, and that learning needs to be learned.
Absolutely.
It doesn't just happen.
No, that's right.
To improve the relationships.
Yeah.
Very good. Anna, you're heading into teaching the first people subject in the new College of Law Masters in Legal Business Suite. What are you looking forward to?
I'm actually really excited to seeing how this idea of talent planning and workforce planning and future scenario planning is picked up by the students, and how they actually take that back into their own organisations. I think this idea of talent planning has actually been of interest. Firms know that this is important, but actually understanding some of the methodologies and processes and approaches to how you can sort of crack these complex questions, I think is really interesting. It's always lovely to see what students do with the information and how they take it back and tweak it and make it their own. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they learn it, but I'm also looking forward to seeing what they do with it after the subject. That's the really great part.
So this is not just a program for lawyers. It's a program for those who manage functions in law departments or law firms, HR managers, learning development managers, knowledge managers, the whole gamut of the functional specialists in firms. How do you see that mix playing out in your classes?
Well, I personally like that one because I've had those roles myself. So having been a HR director in professional services firms, I think that group of people is actually underserviced. And I think they're a really important part of supporting professional partnerships. There are unique things about working in a partnership, everyone knows that. And I think it's a really interesting role for those people that choose to take on, whether it's head of HR or head of finance or head of ops or whatever it might be. And they need these specialist skills. They need this deep technical information to be able to work effectively with the partners and have those conversations. And they want to be trusted advisors to their partners as their internal clients in the same way that the partners do to their external clients.
And so they need to be an integral part of the team rather than the shared services
Indeed. Indeed, indeed.
sitting over there as a cost centre.
That's right, that's right.
Last word then, teams and law firms.
Yes, done badly, need to do much better. I think teams are actually the thing that power good firms. If you look at great practice groups, if you look at good relationships between firm leadership and those professional support functions that we were just talking about, teams are what make it work. Teams in professional services are not the same as other organisations, so we've got to focus on what's different about them, and they can be the most enjoyable places to work. A great team, if everyone's had that experience, you remember it and you really enjoy it and you want to get that again.
And again, teamwork can be learned.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
It's not something that we have or don't have.
No, and I think it actually must be learned for professional services because our teams are different. You know, we're working on high autonomy teams, we need very proactive teams, and we also need resilient teams. We need teams that can support each other when things get tricky and interesting, and we need to learn how to do that well. Very few people are born knowing how to do that one.
Thank you, Anna.
My pleasure, George. Thank you.